The next time somebody wants to throw off the 34 felony count tagline on President Trump, you show them this video, because they're probably unaware of the fact that the judge in the trial, Judge Juan Merchan, was not only a Democrat and a Democrat supporter, he was also a contributor to the Biden campaign, donated money. They also may be unaware of the fact that the judge's daughter is one of the biggest fundraisers for the Democrat Party. Raised almost $100 million for the Democrat Party. Now, she raised also over $9 million for Adam Shifty Schiff, who went on to win the senator role for the state of California. Think that has something to do with it? The fact that they did not allow televisions in the courtroom, when everybody knows it would have been one of the most widely watched trials in history. They put Johnny Depp's up there and a lot of other celebrities, but they didn't televise the Trump trial. Why? Because they knew they were violating the law. They knew it was unconstitutional. And if the American people saw it, it would mess up their agenda. See, the agenda was to convict him, put that tagline on him as a felon, and that would somehow sway the American public during the election, and Kamala Harris would coast on in. But they underestimated the American people, like Democrats always do. And we were on top of our game and realized the BS. The fact of the matter is, as witnesses, you had Michael Cohen, who was a lawyer who perjured himself and went to prison for perjury, lying to Congress on unrelated cases. And then you got Stormy Daniels, the corn star, who in years past wrote several affidavits stating that nothing ever happened between her and President Trump. And then all of a sudden, she has an epiphany after being contacted by some people and some palms being greased, allegedly. Now she remembers all of this stuff. But what most people don't know is that President Trump sued Stormy Daniels for defamation. And guess what? She lost. Stormy Daniels lost the case to President Trump. The media just didn't want to talk about it. She lost the defamation case to President Trump, and the court ordered her to pay his legal fees, which are over $120,000. And this was prior to her testifying in the Trump hush money trial. So you got somebody who wrote two affidavits stating nothing ever happened, gets sued for defamation after she starts putting this story out to try to help the Democrats in the trial. He sues, wins, is awarded that she pays legal fees, which she has not done. And then that's their star witness. Trump wasn't allowed to have his witnesses testify. They weren't allowed their evidence. They didn't allow their evidence to be put into the trial either. And so that's why it wasn't televised. So the next time somebody says this, you show them this video. Now, what you're about to see here is Congressman Kelly Armstrong grilling a judge about President Trump's hush money trial. And what you're going to hear and see is a bombshell that the mainstream, should I say the mainstream media, did not want the American people to see and to know. So without further ado, check this out.
From North Dakota is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I very much appreciate the questioning from my friend from Texas. She's one of the few other people that has actually practiced criminal defense and public defense. And as somebody who's done that for a very long time, I appreciate that very much. I never did practice in New York. I also have practiced in federal court, and I've practiced in state court and passed several bar exams as well. Judge Wilson, what's the statute of limitations on a misdemeanor in New York?
1 year.
When was this? What is the business records case is a misdemeanor, correct?
The underlying crime, the falsifying business records, yes, that's a misdemeanor charge.
So the only way to get to a felony is by committing it, or is by in concealment of another crime.
Correct.
And each one of those crimes has specific elements.
That's right.
And you have to prove, in order to get a conviction at trial, you have to prove every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, right? That's just traditionally how this works.
That is the right way to do it.
So in the indictment, did they put the underlying crime?
No, they did not. They only described it as other crimes.
Okay. And in the jury instructions, did they put the specific underlying crime?
No, the falsifying business records was described in the jury instructions. There was some brief description of the New York State election law violation, but there was no description given of the choice of three crimes. There was a description given of falsifying business records, which was pretty ironic because it was falsifying business records to falsify business records.
So, and that's also a misdemeanor, right?
That should be, yeah.
So you have 2 + 2 = 6. Like if you commit 2 misdemeanors, you get to the felony statute of limitations, which they had to get or they could have never brought the case.
That's correct. But there's some more question marks regarding the statute of limitations. It's not cut and dry because the time that Donald Trump spent out of New York could be used to toll the statute of limitations. That was the ruling in the Court of Appeals Harvey Weinstein case. He argued that the time that he spent out of California should not have tolled it, out of New York, that is, in California, should not have tolled the time limitations, but the Court of Appeals ruled against him on that issue. So
let's get this straight. So President Trump was prosecuted in New York State court under misdemeanor, okay, bookkeeping misdemeanor that was escalated into a felony after the statute of limitations had already expired, which the statute of limitations on a bookkeeping issue is only 1 year. So they extended that and bumped it up to a felony of a federal crime, but being prosecuted in a state court. So just to make sure you're following so far. So right now we're talking about the actual charges, the things being alleged that he was being accused of were misdemeanors, not one, 2 misdemeanors, and the second one is kind of iffy.
that's, I think, how they get around the statute of limitations problem in this case.
So was the election law case a federal election law or state election law underlying crime?
Seemed like it was charged as both. When we got to the jury instructions, there's a violation of New York election law charged, but then there's one among the 3 charges underlying is an unspecified violation of federal election law,
And then the third one was tax violation, right?
also unspecified.
So all 3 of those underlying crimes have significantly different elements of the crime.
That is correct.
Were any of
And if you're enjoying this video, hit that like button. I'll never ask you for a cash app. I'll never ask you for a super chat, but you hitting the like button helps spread it around. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. On this channel, I share political and current events and sales tips and techniques. So subscribe. And when you do, hit the notification bell and select all. That way you get notified when I upload new videos. So the jury instructions, when they had to go deliberate, were not even of any concrete crime. There were 3 different alleged things. And they literally told the jury, okay, here's the list of several things. If you think he did any one of these, if you think that he was trying to do any one of these, just select one. There was nothing concrete as far as whether it was on tax, whether it was on New York election law or whatever it was. There was no specificity as far as to what the actual crime is. It's just, hey, listen, he did something, and what he did could fall under federal, could fall under state, and it could fall under tax. So if you think he did one of these 3 things, you know, he's guilty. Not, hey, he did this, and beyond a shadow of a doubt, you know, we've proven that. No, 3 different variables, 3 different, had never been done in a court of law before, ever.
the elements of those crimes listed?
No, not at all.
So, this is important, and it might not be as robust or anything, but when you defend a client in court, if you don't know what the elements of the crime you're defending, how do you mount a defense?
You can't. That's the very issue of fundamental fairness that I referenced. You, as a defendant, are entitled to know what the charges are against you so that you can defend against those charges. Donald Trump was never made aware of what the extent of the charges were against him until the end of the trial.
And the elements of the crime go in the jury instructions. I mean, traditionally, that's how it works. Federal court, state court in North Dakota, state court in Minnesota. I've been in all of these different jurisdictions. You actually get the elements of the underlying crime, correct?
Any time that I instructed a jury, I instructed them what the elements of the crime were.
And instead, in this case, they got a grab bag.
They got a choice of 3 when it came to the underlying crimes, and we don't even know which ones they chose. So we don't know whether or not they could have been unanimous on those 3 or not. That's another failing of the jury instruction.
So not only did we have not the elements of the crime, but we had 3 different crimes with 3 vastly different elements of the crimes.
All unspecified.
None of them in the indictment. The elements of the crimes weren't in the bill of particulars. Last hearing, I had the bill of particulars waved at me like it was some kind of magic document that flew in here with its own cape.
So the statement of facts only describes a series of allegations, a series of actions that it's believed that Donald Trump took. None of them describe any criminal activity. None of them describe any, they don't describe any elements of any crime.
And that's why you believe as do I, that when this goes on appeal, there's going to be significant legal issues to argue that the jury never actually got them put in front of them.
I have very little doubt that this matter will be reversed on appeal and based upon these issues.
Because I've actually been I believe jury trials are still the best way to determine guilt and innocence. I just believe juries are only as good as the information put in front of them. So, and with that, I yield back.
So let's get this straight. President Trump was brought up on charges, felony charges, over bookkeeping issues, which in the state of New York are a misdemeanor, which expire, the statute of limitation run out after 1 year. So they took this misdemeanor, made it like a transformer, and bumped it to a felony under a charge which has never been specified. This action of taking this misdemeanor and turning it into a felony like this for this bookkeeping issue pertaining to elections has never been used in the history of the United States on anyone else. They take it to trial. The prosecution, whenever they object, the judge is riding with them. When the defense objects, it was overruled. President Trump's witnesses were not allowed. Their evidence was not allowed. And then when it came to the jury instructions, they had 3 different allegations that were listed. They could select from any one of the 3. Now, typically in a court of law, it has to be a unanimous jury in order to prosecute. Until now. Now, the jurors could have selected any one of the 3 that they wanted, just as long as they selected something. Now, if they chose not to select anything and say, I don't think that at all, well, that would have been a whole nother monkey wrench. But guess what? By giving them 3 and saying, hey, you know, which one of these do you think he was trying to do, made it easy for them to say, I'll select one. And think about it. What juror wanted to be the one to come out of that courtroom and be responsible for the failure to prosecute President Trump at that time? Now, today they would be a hero. But at that time, they would have been canceled. They would have been ridiculed. They would have been it would have been persecuted by the public. They would have been harassed out of this world. So I get it as a juror why they didn't want to be that one, but right is right. So when you find out that the jurors went in without any specific instructions on what the actual crime was, they never pointed out what the tax crime potential was. What was the election crime? What was it? What was the bookkeeping crime? And just so you know, the 34 counts, what they're saying is when President Trump, his business, paid Michael Cohen, who was his lawyer, every check that they wrote him, which was obviously 34 of them, they added as a count. So it's not that there was 34 different things done. For every time he paid the lawyer that was involved in the situation, they gave it a count. So they took the same action and bumped it 34 times on a misdemeanor that had already expired the statute of limitations. Did not allow TV in to what would have been the biggest and most publicized court trial in the history of court trials being televised. And the judge's daughter and the judge not only are Democrat supporters, Democrat donors, and the daughter raised over almost $100 million for the Democrat Party. And we like to believe that this trial was straight up and down. No. So when people like to throw out that 34 count felon, that was only there because they thought it was going to sway the election. So it's another form of election interference that will be overturned when it goes through the Court of Appeals, strictly on constitutional violations alone. Lack of unanimous jury. To this day, as you heard that judge say, no one still knows what the actual jurors selected. No one knows. That's unconstitutional. The fact that there was no crime specified. So what was he officially charged with? No one knows, but we will soon. So I just wanted to jump in and show that to you. I know that you already know that there was lawfare at the highest levels, but most people really didn't know just how corrupt it was, how the jurors weren't unanimous on any specific crime. Not at all. Matter of fact, they had 3 different variables to choose from. It was a multiple choice prosecution of a former president. Can you imagine that? When in that situation, you would think it would be the most credible and the most honest prosecutors, defenders, judges involved in this case that will want to make sure that it's ran the right way because of who's involved. But no, those Democrats suffer from TDS so bad, they made a mockery of our court system, taking a misdemeanor, turning it into a felony, extending the statute of limitations of a misdemeanor so it could be applicable to the felony, not allowing the jurors to be unanimous on a specific crime, never specifying the crime, not allowing the defense's evidence and witnesses to testify, and putting up a perjured lawyer who went to prison for lying to Congress, and a corn star who had lost a defamation suit to the president over $100,000 as their star witnesses, and they hung their hat on as if these people are credible. Get out of here. Get out of here. So it just adds more validity to our belief that we made the right decision when who we selected as our commander-in-chief. And good riddance to bad rubbish that sat in the White House before. We are on a mission to make America great again. So with all that being said, I wanted to put this video out so people could have more information on what was really going on in that case and in that trial. In the event, you might have said, well, he must have done something if they were able to get that conviction. No, the conviction was based off of nothing. There was no crime specified. There was no unanimous jury. The defense was not allowed their evidence or their witnesses. And every one of those counts is for paying his lawyer that worked for the company. Not that every one of those checks went to something. No. It was one bookkeeping ledger line that said that the checks that were paid to the attorney were for legal fees, which they were. And the Democrats took a nothing burger and turned it into a whopper. Why do you think President Trump didn't get any penalty? They know it's going to be overturned, and the mission was not accomplished. They knew this was a kangaroo court trial anyway. It was never about the prosecution for prosecution's sake or him being guilty of an actual crime. It was all about them thinking the American people were stupid enough to fall for it, and we weren't. So kudos to you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Brian Maxwell, saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out. Make sure you like it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share it. Peace.